Good, maybe evening. I don't know. First of all, a bit late, but congratulations on getting the Paris ticket, the Olympic ticket.
Thanks. Yeah, definitely still excited. It hasn't really gone away. So, yeah, I appreciate that and excited to chat here.
Is it difficult to sort of identify as being an Olympian?
Well, it's kind of funny. A lot of the time when people say that to me, I'm like, oh, let's not jinx it. Like, I feel like there still could be something in the next 6 months
Sure,
that
sure, sure.
goes wrong or something like that. Where, yeah. So I guess I'm roommating with Kyra now, staying in her house, and uh, she always says that you're not an Olympian until you like step out onto the stage for the first time. So I'm
Fair point. Fair
following
point.
following suit, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But
but
was
future
it
Olympian, I'll take that.
future Olympian? We can say,
Yeah,
right? So
excited
was it
about that,
was it
yeah.
obviously it was a goal of yours to make the Olympics in Paris. Did you expect it?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I had this sort of dream since I was, like, a little kid, like, watching Michael Phelps and, all the other events, like, in the Summer Olympics, but, growing up, like, it wasn't really a reality for me as far as, like, climbing being in the Olympics at all. So I think for most of my life, like, definitely never was an expectation that I would ever get here. Of course, it was, like, something that I always wanted to shoot for. But then, yeah, like, in 2020, it suddenly became, a thing that was possible. I didn't love the format back then, so I didn't really try too hard to throw my hat in the ring. But then when 24 came out with the new format, it suddenly became like that dream that I had like as a little kid came back, and yeah, I definitely couldn't have expected it by any means. Of course, like having deep set hopes is always something that was there for me, but going into Pan Am's, which is what got me the ticket, like I definitely had like ideas in my head of like what I would do if I didn't get the ticket or what would happen if I did. So yeah, I'm excited that I did, and we don't have to talk about the other options. But yeah, it's definitely been a wild ride from there.
Just shortly, you said that you didn't like the old format with the speed. The new format, you like it, or you would still prefer, to do like bouldering and lead separately?
Yeah, I actually do like it. I think that I no matter what other people call me, like I've always identified as like a boulder and lead athlete. That's like the two you know pieces of bread and butter of what I do for the sport. And I think that, of course, like competitive wise, like I kind of can match up a little bit better in lead to the best in the world. But I also think that with bouldering, it's always been an essential part of my training. Anytime you're stepping on a lead route, it is just like a compilation of smaller boulders. So being able to do well in like any individual boulder is always helpful for lead in general. So I think that's always been like top of my mind. And on top of that, like I think most of my sessions involve some level of bouldering and lead. And I think that as like a stamina athlete, it's like even more cool to be able to do multiple rounds in like one day.
So you say you feel you're, well, obviously still more of a lead climber than a boulder, like in terms of competitive wise, like to or actually you were anyway. Like, how's your bouldering now? Is it, do you feel you're getting better, getting closer to to the very best in bouldering as well?
Yeah, it's always hard to compare being off season and not having the opportunity to compete there. I think that personally, like I'm getting a lot better and faster than I ever did before. I think that I just didn't have the exposure to the style. Honestly, I was in New Jersey until I was like 18 or so, and then I moved to Boston for school for like 7 or 8 years. So this is only approaching like my second year or so in Salt Lake City, where I haven't really been. I've been based, but like haven't really been able to, uh, really stay here for a long period of time and really take in all the training opportunities that are here. So I think just being exposed to the style for a longer period of time, like I feel like anyone would naturally get better at it. And I think that I'm taking like every opportunity I can to improve there. So I'm hoping that I'm continually approaching that level. But I guess you never know until you throw your hat in the ring again.
True, but and do you think it affects your lead climbing in a good or a bad way?
Yeah, I think that overall it's like a confidence thing. I think that, as I said before, like just being able to do harder sequences and being able to, not be intimidated by throwing in a comp move here or there, I think is really beneficial for my lead head and helps me like, yeah, push myself further in that sport, in that discipline.
Makes sense. You said something interesting. Yeah, because most boulders, like I know you identify as boulder and lead, but like let's say specialists, right? Specialist boulders, they have a problem with over gripping when they lead climb. Many have anyway. And you said something to the effect that it was sort of the opposite for you. That you when you climb on lead, because you can't fall off. You have one chance, right? You sort of fight to the death, basically. Whereas when you boulder, you feel more free and you can be more loose, and you to learn to be more loose in your body and not, which to me is sort of the opposite. Like you try to grip less when you boulder. Is, does it
Yeah,
make
I
sense?
think the biggest part for me in continuing this like journey of understanding like comp bouldering, I'll specify there. Like I think to back up a sec, I guess like bouldering has always been an essential part of my training, but I would definitely say comp bouldering is something that is still fairly novel for me,
Right.
and it's something that I'm still trying to wrap my head around a little bit more. But I think part of comp bouldering involves being comfortable falling and really throwing yourself at the wall and not being afraid of like taking more falls and just practicing a move over and over again. Whereas
Mhm.
for me, like lead climbing, it's like, okay, you get this one opportunity, and if you fall, like you have to go back to the beginning. Whereas like bouldering, oftentimes, like when you're training it, I think that practicing individual moves and just not being afraid to just get into positions is more beneficial than going back to the start and trying again. Because for most people, like it's not any individual move that is like the stopper for lead climbing, but bouldering, quite often it's just one move
Mhm.
that holds you back from doing a problem.
Mm. And also when you boulder, it feels like your shoulders or elbows, whatever, are gonna explode all the time, right?
Exactly,
That's what
for
I feel
sure.
anyway. Like, no, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, I think that being comfortable with falling is something that I'm not used to, because I think that I have that, like, fight to the death mentality a lot in training and competitions, but kind of, like, being more loose and, uh, being comfortable, like, trying something, falling, and then trying something else is something I think essential to being one of the best boulders out there.
So I can remember last year when I met you in Slovenia. You have been training with the Roman there on the Janias wall, and you did those circles there, and you want to do one more, and then Roman has to stop you because he say no more circles, Jesse, just that's it for today, and you want to go again and again. Yeah, it was kind of impressive to see. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, I think a lot of my training involves doing, yeah, maybe just like one more, but I always kind of come in with a plan of like a number that I want to hit or a certain circuit that I like want to do. So it always is like pre-scripted, even if it might seem like I'm yeah, just hungry to blow out my forearms.
But were you already from the beginning a sort of natural endurance athlete, you think?
So I think that my talent as a climber has always kind of come down to my failure point, I would say, as well as like kind of like optimism that I call it like kind of like optimistic training. Um, I think that those two pieces kind of combined are very uh, useful when you're trying to train endurance and be like an endurance athlete. And what I mean by that, one is like failure point is just like the idea to me, and it kind of comes from like rehabilitation science, where what percentage of your time on the wall and in your training block can you be comfortable failing? And I think that at least when I'm doing that alone, I think that I can have a quite high tolerance for that. And I think, of course, it's like how you view what a failure is, because for me, like a lot of the time, I'm like failing, but I also know that like falling on a circuit that's hard for me is also really beneficial. And keeping that kind of perspective that failure is positive has always benefited me. for me, it's like not about like sending circuits or sending individual lead climbs. It's more about being able to put in the time, put in the work, and know that like even though I'm falling, 10 moves into a circuit today, like next time it'll be 12, and next time it'll be 15, and kind of having that overarching idea, I think has always been something that has like pushed me in the sport and allowed me to excel in training, and then that of course responds well in competition.
So basically, have a trust in the process.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah, yeah. Because you mentioned if you could only do 7 moves or 10 or 12 moves. My question was going to be like, how early can you fail and it's still really good training? But do you if you fall on move 7, say, do you jump right back on and keep climbing, or how does it work?
Yeah, I always finish like a circuit that I start. I think that's like really important to me. I will rest like 30 seconds and then get back on. But for me, honestly, like a lot of my training does kind of come down to power endurance, I would say. But then also like mixing that a little bit more with endurance. But I've always, until last year when we like got like the lead wall in Salt Lake City, like I've always felt like circuits are more beneficial than doing like lead climbing in general for training, just because you can do more of them. You're less like dependent on, having that partner or other person to kind of be there and like, wait for you to, finish a route and vice versa. So I think that it's always just felt more efficient and like small tweaks are more possible so that you can optimize your training.
Right, but it's still basically like red pointing in a way, and that you make sequences and then longer sequences and links and the whole thing. Like, but it's easier on
Exactly.
the board, yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. And I think that falling at move 10 is beneficial in some ways because the circuit is obviously quite hard for you. But then also falling on move like 28 of a 30 move circuit is also beneficial more on like power endurance side than maybe getting closer to like just like power. So I think that like having circuits that kind of like balance each other and then like alternating is like really important for me as well. That makes sense.
And do you create those circles yourself, or who does it?
It depends, yeah. So I think that for when I have the availability to like climb on other people's circuits, I think that that's quite helpful because it's a style that isn't mine, and it is a good simulation in like the comp world to generally just like get on boulders and routes that are not your style. But then if I'm training alone or maybe I'll have like some days where I'm training with others and training as a team, and those days I get circuits from other people. But then when I'm alone, it's nice to also have circuits that maybe there's a move that I like fell on in a competition and I want to like create kind of a replicate in the middle of like my circuit. I can kind of do that. And I think I can really like target weaknesses and movement that is challenging for me. So I think it's nice to also have that balance. But for instance, as Vladek said, like going to Roman spray wall, of course I'm gonna get on Roman's circuits. I wouldn't want to just like make my own space like that.
Yeah. So, and other than that, where do you get the inspiration? Is it from? Do you watch like YouTube videos or Instagram or whatever? Like,
Yeah, I've actually worked with a coach, Randy Goldberg, since I was almost 9, actually, and we've yeah, we have it's like a amazing like mentorship like relationship, I would say. But uh, I think that she's like pushed me to she like still like, can provide like workouts even though she's like not in Salt Lake City, she's in St. Louis, but she sends me like workouts when I need them, and yeah, I can kind of talk like strategy about like trading, which is like really helpful. So I think that that's where I get a lot of my inspiration. But then, of course, like being on the circuit and getting to climb with some of the greats and like some of the people who I see as like kind of some of the best in this discipline, I think has been really eye opening as far as like what trading looks like, and that's also just like in the U.S. as well.
So how it works actually with your training? You have like your person coach or your old coach still, and then you train with Josh, or who is writing your training plan now?
Yeah, so Randy still writes my training plan. So the coach that I've had since I was little. And then it's nice to go into like the training center and so she'll write like a workout, like do this number of circuits or like have this kind of like bouldering round, and then I'll go into the training center and maybe part of my time will be like movement focused, and maybe like Josh would help me with that. Maybe he would be making up those circuits or those spray wall boulders for me, and I think that it's nice to have someone on the ground to sort of help with the movement side of things, and then have someone like Randy to kind of like have this overarching idea of like who I am as a person, how I'll respond to workouts because she knows like how I've done in the past, and then kind of like having both of those side of things to cater to my needs, I think is really beneficial to me as an athlete as a whole.
So, since you mentioned you had Randy as a trainer since you were 9 years old, I read that you actually competed on a national level already when you were like 10, 9, 10, 11. I don't know, something like that. And this is something that I guess most of the people in on the team has done, right? Have done.
Decent amount,
Um,
yeah, I would say.
yeah. Is there anyone who has sort of started later on?
And who's like currently competing on the international
Yeah,
stage?
yeah, yeah.
I know of people who have started like 12 or 14. I am I don't want to like say any names because I could be wrong and I don't want to be quoted there, but I think that for the most part though, like starting kind of around puberty or like right before is probably like pushing the limit of like what I see international competitors who are like the best in the world doing.
Mm, mm.
Which is unfortunate, but I think of course, like, anyone can be good no matter what age they start at climbing, and I think it's all like a relative challenge for us. But I think just like putting in those hours and getting that time on the wall like earlier on, like one, I think it helps like reduce injury or is like injury prevention at its finest, and then two, like I think just sheer number of hours, just an understanding of movement, like I think really helps progress anyone in the sport.
Yeah, I'm sure you're right there. But still, I noticed you won some comp like in California, I think, when you were 11.
Yeah.
See, which is like to me because you from New Jersey, right? That's a lot of traveling for a comp when you're 11, right? Did you travel a lot for a comp?
So we had nationals twice a year. I didn't always make it, but when I was younger, there was a decent amount of time that I kind of like I always thought that I sort of like peaked when I was like 11, 12, because I kind of had a stretch where I like was winning like all the like UP nationals. And then by the time I was like 13, 14, and I was still like a pipsqueak and really small, and then all the other guys in my age category were suddenly like twice my height. I yeah, suddenly just like felt like a complete outsider in my category and ability levels. And I think that like my like obliviousness as a kid suddenly kicked off, and I like really wanted to like win or like wanted to perform at this like high level. Um, so it was a decent amount of time that I like was able to compete on that circuit. It was always like a question for me, like, can my family like afford to like go to like this nationals? And I think other kids that I was competing with, like, it was kind of like we have like regionals and divisionals and nationals. And I think like oftentimes like I would be talking to my friends like after the comp, and it would be like, okay, we're so excited to like go to nationals, and I would kind of be like, oh well, I just need to make sure with like my parents that like we can afford to like go or whatever. So it wasn't like a given, but um, oftentimes like I was able to like go on these trips, and I think that that was really motivating for me to get to like compete on this like national stage. Um, but I think it like yeah, that idea of like me winning at 11, I think was a catalyst for what I realized was possible. But it obviously I didn't stay that great, and I think I like really ebbed and flowed throughout this time, which I think is like even more spectacular for me, like looking back on this journey, how like I just was able to continue to believe in myself to like this day.
So we sort of lost you there for
Oh
20
no.
seconds, I think. Yeah, I don't know if it's the connection, probably is. But you said that you had sort of your first, I don't know, breakthrough at 11, and then it seems like because you said your early career sort of has been like an ebb and flow, like back and forth, up and down a little bit. But in retrospect, it always looks like it's been one straight line to success, sort of.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's something that is really hard to keep present in anyone's mind. I think to go back to like Randy, I guess like something that she constantly is like, or sort of reminding me is like, she had this analogy that we're all like an ocean in our climbing, and every day of climbing and training or competition is like a drop in that ocean. And I think that your overall like body of water can of course be like slightly affected by each drop, but you know, it's an ocean. It's not going to change in shape that much based on like one day of climbing or training, even if other people's like perception of you might change based on those. But yeah, I don't think that many people remember like me as a 13-year-old uh falling and not winning a UD competition or UC competition, but maybe they do remember that UD competition or like Youth Worlds because of what a highlight it is in my career. But of course, I'm going to hold on to those memories of when I wasn't at my peak and yeah, how I wasn't like in top performance on that day.
This Youth World Championship when you were, what, 18, I think. Was this sort of a breakthrough for you where you realized I can actually make it internationally? Or how do you feel? How did you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me it was like really eye-opening, like as far as like these are other competitors that I've watched at other youth worlds and know how, amazing and incredible they are, and to be able to stack up on that level was really incredible for me. I think that it reignited like kind of a fire to try to compete on the international circuit, which I would try to do like in the coming years. But I think in the back of my head, it was like I actually missed my like orientation for college in order to compete in the event. So I think it was always a question in my mind, like, can I really keep up competing at this level and also going to school at the same time? And I think that was like a concern and maybe like a little bit of doubt towards my competitive future.
So you didn't consider like waiting a couple of years with college or?
Yeah, it just wasn't as common, I feel like in at that time, and I felt like for me to feel the most confident in myself in general, like I think having like another plan in some way, like if climbing doesn't fully work out, like I can go be an engineer or go I have like this other tangible like career path, I think was always something in the back of my head that would free my climbing in some way that I would be able to, have this side like climbing wouldn't be everything if I got injured or something went wrong. So I think it was important for me like my whole career and time in college to make sure that it was worth it.
Hmm. Again, it could be that, I mean, we're here in Europe, and here it's super common to, you after what is the equivalent of high school, you take a couple of years off, you travel, you do nothing, maybe work a year or something, and then you apply for university. Maybe it's not the same with college though. Do you usually go straight from high school to college? Is that how it works? Or
Yeah, most of the time in the US, that is how it works. I think that people take gap years sometimes for sure, but I think I always had it in my mind that I wanted to like go to college, and it seemed like to do it faster would be the best in retrospect. Like maybe it would have made sense to try to find a way to do fewer classes or not push it so fast.
basically, you were saying that it was important for you to have like a second leg to stand on, basically, like an engineer's degree. Uh, reading interviews with you, it seems. I mean, you're really the engineering part. It's an important part in your life. It seems like working with the exoskeletal, whatever. What is it you're working with exactly?
Yeah, yeah. For the past like 3.5 years, I've been working in a rehabilitation lab pretty much that focuses on stroke patients and providing technology like exoskeletons to enable their recovery. And I think that for me, it's like I've always been interested in like human performance in general and like what we're capable of. And I think that's like progressed me in climbing. but I think being able to give that opportunity to others is also incredibly meaningful for me. So I think having that balance and, knowing that like my life, while like it is awesome to be able to pursue my uh, life as a climber, like I think being able to also have a little bit of uh, a a career where I'm focusing on helping others do the same for themselves is beneficial for me mentally. I think it opens up a door when I'm like back from climbing where one, I don't need to think about climbing all the time. And
Mhm.
that obsessive nature of me, I think would might eat away at myself a little bit too much if I only could think about climbing. So I think it's really just like a nice like mental break and breather in some way, where I'm able to uh just have this escape and this creative process where I'm outside of the climbing world for uh, even just like a moment. And of course, like then when I'm able to come back to climbing, it's kind of like a refresh and something that I'm able to fully focus on for myself.
And maybe it works the other way as well when you're deep into engineering that you can go climbing for a weekend and
Exactly. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. That is what's beautiful about it for sure.
yeah, yeah.
How it works then with the training and working? How do you manage?
Yeah, so I'm really fortunate to be working in a lab that is letting me work part-time right now and remotely. So the hours, while there is like some work that has like deadlines, the hours that I do that work are not strict by any means. So I'm able to climb for 5 hours in the morning, work for an hour or two, and then go back to like training in the evening or something like that. And then on rest days, like I'm able to pick it up and do a little bit more. So I think that it's just definitely just nice to like have a bit of balance, and I'm really fortunate to have found a career that kind of like, or a second career, I guess, that allows me to do that.
So since you can work remote, I take it you work on a software side or
Yeah, so yeah, my background's in mechanical engineering. So while I was in Boston and working in person, I was focusing a lot more on sort of like the creative side of engineering, kind of like developing devices and trying to take a device and try to make it just like a little bit better. Um, and I worked on a number of rehabilitation devices for stroke patients. Now, not to get like too into it, but I'm working on an educational platform to teach people about soft robotics, which is basically like instead of like metallic robotics, which is like those, having like rigid components that kind of are put together using like textiles and squishy materials to create movement, which are a lot easier to implement on a person's like body than putting like a metal rod or
Mhm.
other kind of uncomfortable material on a person.
And that you do like little bit every day, like a couple of hours or every other day or
Yeah, probably like every other day. I have like longer like training days, and on those days, maybe I'm not focusing on as much. But yeah, and I kind of like working in when I can.
hmm.
How looks your training at the moment actually? Like do you train so how many hours? Yeah, I guess many
Mm,
hours.
yeah, yeah. I think that it definitely ebbs and flows as well as far as like what part of the season we're in. Right now, I'm kind of in like a strength building block. And I'm also fortunate to like be in Salt Lake right now, so I am focusing a decent amount on comp bouldering and trying to understand, uh, trying to work out some like weaknesses on that front. So I would say I'm like training for 4, maybe up to like 5 hours in the beginning of the day, taking a rest, and then doing like strength and conditioning either in the like late afternoon or early evening. And that's probably like an hour and a half. So that's something that I did last season, but it's kind of still like new to me. So it's kind of fun to push myself in like a new way.
And talking about the season, it's kind of a different season, this one, uh,
Yeah.
to say the least. Um, and now, well, not now, but now that you made the Olympics, I guess it changed a lot for the season. I was going to ask that, but then I realized that whoever won took the second U.S. spot would have meant that you wouldn't have done the qualification series anyway. It wouldn't happen, so it maybe didn't change so much. But
Yeah.
if you had a chance, would you have wanted to do the qualification series just as preparation for the Olympics?
Hmm. I think that it would have been really interesting. I think that in my head though, like I think it might have been a little mentally challenging as well, just to do a competition like that. Maybe I have a foot slip or some other issue, and I end up not being able to, um, or not maybe performing my best, and then I'm kind of like say I like don't make that like top 10 or whatever the quota is for making like the Olympics. I think that that could be sort of in the back of my mind, like going into the Olympics, like did I
Mm,
like really earn this spot maybe in some way? But I think as far as like pushing my climbing. Like I think that having more competitions, especially in the format that would be like the Olympics, would be pretty beneficial for me. So I think it would be cool to be able to compete, but I'm not too bummed, I guess, to say the
uh,
least, that I don't have to.
mm. And speaking of which, like the qualification, what because one can certainly have thoughts on the qualification format, right? With it's like you have the Pan Ams, for example, which is South Africa, South America could easily have been like one continent, right? And
Yeah.
then you have Africa, which is basically just South Africa. Uh, do you have any feeling, any thoughts on that? Like the
Yeah, I think being there, like, it definitely felt like South America should be able to have its own competition. I'm actually not sure why they have it set up that way. It's interesting because the Pan American Championships weren't just like climbing, like there were like many sports, and we had like a little like village in the same setup as like the Olympics in some way. And I think that it's curious that for a lot of sports that that is how it goes, where you have like North and South America that have to vie for like one spot altogether. So I think that it definitely is like a bummer, especially for a lot of my like South American friends. Uh, and yeah, I guess I'd be curious if that could ever change in the future. But and then as far as like Africa, like I think that you know, I think it is there is something to be said, maybe not about it being unfair, but just that maybe we need to spend more time allowing climbing to become more accessible and having that be like the primary focus as opposed to thinking that it's unfair that one country is like the predominant uh, one in the sport down there.
I think actually the main the main issue I have with it is that for me, the Olympic Games should be sort of for the whole world, right? Like it should be one from each country if possible. And
Hmm.
whereas in climbing we have 20 spots total. It's kind of weird to me because it should be open for the world. Um,
Yeah, and I guess I hope that as it continues to create its like prowess on like the world stage in this way, like maybe it'll eventually become fully included in the sense that it would have like more spots and it would be available to more people to compete overall.
let's hope for Los Angeles 2028.
Yeah.
That's right. That'd be
Mm,
really cool.
yeah, where actually lead will be a discipline, right? You
I
will
think
have
it's not
lead.
confirmed yet, actually.
I think isn't
Is my
lead and
understanding.
speed confirmed, but not boulder really, or is it?
Oh, I might have missed
Maybe.
the announcement for sure. I know that they announced that there would be like 3 medals, but,
Mhm.
you know, there's totally the chance that they could do like, you know,
True.
a relay race for speed or something like that, you know, like I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
keeping my fingers crossed though.
Oh, I have one question. One more question about the Olympics, which sort of ties into that. If you could give someone a ticket to Paris, who would you give it to? A
Like
climber,
to watch.
like no, no, to climb, to compete.
Oh, to compete. Ooh, huh. I mean, I think that there are a couple names that definitely come to mind. You know, I think like uh, the rationale being that like I think that there are several people in the sport that like maybe that was always something that they would have excelled at if it was given an opportunity, and it didn't come in 2020 but it came in 2000 or you know
Mm.
2010. So just off the cuff I guess like I'm thinking about like Lynn Hill or Chris Sharma. Like it would be
Ah, right,
so
right.
cool to like see some of those names like yeah appear on the list for athletes.
Right, and if we you had to pick one that's actually could compete now, like who's active now on the circuit?
Yeah, that's a hard question for sure. I think that I guess I'll answer it just in that, like, I think for me, like, I've always appreciated like camaraderie of like the U.S. team, and I think it was really hard for me. I mean, it was like amazing and hard. It was like a very difficult position, I'll say, to like be on the podium with like Zach and Sean. So I think it would be really cool if like maybe it wasn't like limited to 2 spots per country, and one of them were able to also compete. I think that uh, I really appreciated like how much we were able to like grow as climbers together and push each other, and I think that it is just like a hard game that only 2 per country can go.
And on that subject, you seem to be a pretty tight team. I mean, you hang out together for a long time, every year in Europe, basically, and you seem to have a lot of fun. And sometimes you climb well, and sometimes you climb not so well. Is it always easy to be truly happy for your teammates when things maybe are not going so well?
I think that for me, it's like always an essential part of the ethos of the sport. Um, Whatever like surface level feelings you're having, like I think that uh, I don't know. I guess maybe I've been watching a lot of Ted Lasso. If you guys watch that at all, but I do think that like having that team camaraderie to me is like more important than any one person's achievement. Of course, like climbing is an individual sport, and we're all trying to do our best. But I think we can't do our best if we're kind of at trying to get one ahead of each other. I think that we do our best when we show up and all give each other like equal opportunities. And
Mm.
I think that that's an essential part of climbing, both on the competitive level and the outdoor level. To me as an athlete and like just a human being, I would say like
Mm.
sharing beta and comms, like getting to talk about beta outside with other friends. I think we all have like days when we're not at our best, but I think that being able to be there for those when they're not at their best. It comes and goes, and being able to do that for someone else means that I guess like the karma of the world will help you in the future if you ever in that position.
And has it always been this good on the team? Like,
Yeah, I guess I would say that there are definitely like some people would disagree that it is that good, I would say.
mhm.
I think that for me, I've definitely found a space where I feel comfortable and a space where I feel like I have friends on the team. For me, even like I think that it's been, uh, Ken has been like a challenge, like getting to that position, both because of like the way the funding system works on the team from 2019 to where it is now, and uh, I think others also have a similar feeling where maybe they weren't always like fully included on the team, but now like it's become like more tight knit. So I think it evolves like year to year. But I think like for me, it's just very important to try to transcend that ethos into like the future generations in some sense. That like I'm trying to like leave behind that climbing and being on a team is more important maybe in some ways than your individual performance.
Hmm.
For not but as much as you can think of it that way.
And would you say that the team members are more important to create this, or is it the coaches or?
I think it's definitely a combination, like how
Mm.
how the coaches like allow us to have like bonding time or like time when we're working with each other or working with one another that maybe we aren't like as close friends, because I think naturally like it's easy to fall into training and climbing with the people that you're already friends with. But I think having someone there to also uh, push us to climb with someone who maybe you're not getting along with, or just like haven't had the time to bond with, I think is a great goal of a coach and like those in charge. But so yeah, it goes both ways.
How do you deal actually with like if it doesn't work, like really really good at the moment and you are not winning or performing, how do you deal mentally with it? Like where do you take the motivation to keep training or believing in yourself?
Yeah, I think that is a challenge for any athlete. I think for me, it's about finding that balance in life. I think what I was mentioning before about engineering, I think is a really key part of that for me, that I have this other side of me that I'm not like one dimensional and I'm not like solely just Jesse the climber. Like I also have things that I'm pushing forward even when climbing isn't going its best. And same with like outdoors, like I think me being my best competitive climber means that I'm also like getting to climb outside some as well, that I'm able to progress in the sport in more ways than just one. Um, which the one I guess we're talking about is the competitive side. But I think that that's what's beautiful about the sport, that there are multiple ways to push forward.
Another topic, and you're going to have to help with this, but you have something that's called ulcerative colitis. Is that how you say it?
Ulcerative colitis, yeah.
Yeah, and you've said that this is something that gets worse with stress.
Yep.
And to me, Olympics seems kind of stressful. Do you have a plan for this? Like a different plan than normal, or how does it work?
Yeah, so ulcerative colitis is like a kind of like inflammation bowel disease, and I've had it since like my freshman year of college, which was a while ago. I'm not gonna do the math right now, which is like kind of scary that I'm not trying to do the math right now. But anyway, yeah, so I've had it for a while, and I think that I think stress is like definitely um, a way that I could get into a flare up, which basically is how the disease works. It kind of like ebbs and flows, and uh, uh, it'll kind of rear its head for a few weeks and then go away for some time. I've been so in 2021, I was like hospitalized for the disease in January for about a week or so. I'm now on new medication that has seemed to be working really wonderfully for me. But I think a lot of the ways that I like mitigate the disease, one is like with diet. So I found that like avoiding like very greasy food, dairy and gluten is like kind of an essential part of like me feeling like I'm staying healthy. And then on top of that, I think having ways to mitigate like stress, both with like meditation and yoga, and kind of like before the season, I think I didn't really have like a routine in that way, and I think that that's an essential part of my training for this part of the year, is trying to work those pieces in as like an essential component of my training and my daily routines. And I guess the hope is that in doing it now, it'll feel natural come time of like the Olympics. And if I'm starting to get stressed or, and I think I will get stressed, and I think that's like a natural part of competition. But just like how I deal with that stress is really an important part of what I want to work on going into the Olympics, along with like all the physical components that I feel like I can improve at.
So do you work like on this, meditation, yoga and stuff? Do you work it on your own, or do you work with somebody who's telling you, like that could be good for you, and then you try it, or do you just try it on your own, find the way?
Yeah, most of the time I am like working on my own, doing my own like kind of like yoga and like using like a meditation app. I do work with like a sports psych, not maybe like once a month or so. So just having someone to check in on like both mental health and like ways that I could like kind of improve mentally like in the sport, I think is like really helpful. And then yeah, I think just finding other ways to mix it up, like going to a yoga class as opposed to doing it myself, or finding like group activities with like doing like yoga with like friends or something like that. I think is helpful.
Maybe last question about the Olympics then. Do you have a goal?
Yeah, I think for me, like I've never really like I think maybe like deep down like there is this like hope or dream, but I think for me like stating a goal is really important. So I think that the like goal of the Olympics for me is just being able to show up feeling like I'm in the best shape that I could have possibly been in coming into the competition, and to leave feeling like I left it all on the table and that there wasn't anything else that I felt like I could do in the competition to improve Of course, like maybe there will be like little things, but on like the whole, like I think that that is the dream for me. Like be able to show up my best and leave feeling like I did the best I could.
And if you do that, you get there in the best shape of your life, and you do your best. Deep down, you have to have an idea what that could imply, right? In terms of
Yeah, I mean,
result.
yeah, I mean, I guess like you know, for instance, like just to start, like I think that the only like goal that I would have going into it is to like make the next round. In this case, it would be like finals, which would be really amazing to do. I think that that's a goal, but definitely not an expectation like going into the competition.
About goals, if we move outdoors, I read that you had a goal of flashing AC plus, and then you did, and then you did again. So, question is, what is your goal actually when it comes to outdoor climbing? Is it to flash 9A, or is just this flashing 9A just uh, a small goal on the way to flashing 9A plus, or like?
Mm. Yeah, I think that for me, like it is important to kind of take one step at a time. And for me, like the routes that we talked about, like it was of course like a goal to flash 8C plus, but I really felt like I had these like ideas of which ones it was going to be in my head. Like it wasn't like the grade alone, like I think isn't as important as like the route and the grade combined.
Mhm.
So I think I'm like I think that honestly, like I you know, did it once and it was kind of like, okay, like maybe that was just like I got lucky. But then doing it again, it's like, okay, this is like actually something that maybe would be possible to push even further. And I think that, yeah, now it just like leaves up the idea of like dreaming. And I think that this off season is definitely a time for me to focus on the Olympics, but also, you know, dream a little bit bigger maybe. And I think that's kind of like human nature in some sense that we're like a dog with a bone, like you give it one and it wants more. So I think I'm, yeah, trying to source out not just like what that 9A or 9A plus would be, but or having that like grade goal, but having like what the exact like route would be or like what I'd want it to look like in that sense too. So I think that's like kind of like the combo effect, and I think that's like something really beautiful about the sport is like flashing 8C plus was like something that I didn't think as a kid would ever be possible, and now I'm here, and it's like I can dream even bigger. So
Mm.
it's like really, really amazing to you know constantly be pushing yourself and uh, having those like overarching goals.
You also built up to it, right? You flashed the 8B, the 8B plus, the 8C. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. In that season, I was like definitely prepping for it. I had like that clear, like living astro, like was the climb that I wanted to do. So I definitely had like these other goals, or like sub goals in the same way that like many of the World Cups that I've done are like a sub goal to like reaching like the Olympics. I had like sub goals of like routes that I wanted to do in order to like reach for like that flash of like Live in Astro. Um, so I think like building up to it is like essential for sure.
And pure imagination was also a route that you had your eyes on to flash for a long time then, I
Yeah,
guess.
I actually originally had wanted to onsite it, but I kind of felt like, you know, once I got there, I, you know, had recalled like watching like a video of like Sasha trying it when I was like younger, and like I just felt like it couldn't be like the same
Mm.
like pure level of onsite that I like really wanted for the route, and I figured if I was already in this camp and like flashing it, especially with like Alex like right there, was like probably like the best option that I could have.
And was it hard for you? I mean, obviously it was hard, but was it really like feeling close to the limit, or?
Yeah, I honestly, like, right before I went, the person before me decided to, glue the, like, jug rest or the jug rest, like, it is kind of like a little bit of, like, a sloper slash, like, jug. So when I got there, like, my hands were, like, wet because, like, I don't know if you know, like, whenever you try to, uh, glue a hold, like, both it takes a little bit of time to dry, but also you put, like, sand and, material, like, in it, so I would, like, be taking my hands away and, like, it would be and this is, like, in the middle of the route and it's, like, the, like, last rest pretty much before the top, and I felt like I was, like, slipping out of it, and it was, like yeah, I just felt like it was really hard to, like, get anything back or, like, feel very secure, like, I was definitely, like, over gripping there, so I think it just, like, kinda set up the rest of the route as, like, a scary like a unknown and something that I had to like really fight for.
Then it seems you had sort of a, if the route, well, slope and jag would have been good, you would have had some margin, I guess.
I hope so. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd like to think so at least.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is crazy. Anyway,
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it is pretty wild to think that for sure. I mean,
yeah.
it was yeah, it was one of the most disgusting holes I've ever grabbed outside. So it would be cool to yeah, just to see how far I could push it.
Right. But you don't have any specific route in mind right now that you want to go for, or you do?
Yeah, no. Sorry, yeah, I was nodding because yeah, I don't have anything right now, but I think that right now is like the time that I'm starting to like dream about those problems and what that next step would look like.
That would be all after Olympics, I guess, right? So,
I think that would be, yeah, for sure.
but
Maybe I'll sneak out for a day, but yeah.
yeah, if you are going climbing now, like outdoor, what do? You do just some like easy stuff, or you do some projects?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, like projecting is quite fun while I'm outside, but I think the goal of like any outdoor trip that I'm doing now is to just get a mental break from competition. And I think that having that be the focus more so than getting like dialed in on a project, maybe is like more of the goal, if that makes sense.
And do you go bouldering outside now as well, or only roads?
Yeah, I think that I will be going to like Vegas, for instance, like in a coming weekend, and I think it would be yeah, I'll be mainly focusing on bouldering. It's like a little bit easier, especially in Salt Lake, I would say, with like little cottonwood just around the corner to just
Yeah.
like get out for an evening, like bouldering or yeah, playing with friends outdoors.
How's it going there with the cable car, by the way?
Yeah, I think it's still been approved by the government, but I think that there are some like last next steps that are yeah, hopefully being fought. But yeah, we'll see what happens. I think it's still kind of in the works.
We're going back and forth here. But the coming season, do you have a detailed plan for it already? Like which comps to do and which not to do?
Yeah, I think that right now my focus will be sort of on the Salt Lake City World Cup, and then going back to Innsbruck and doing both like boulder and lead for that competition. And then yeah, just I think that it'll be a pretty like light performance schedule, just so that I can really focus on training. Maybe I'll have a couple trips here and there to other countries to kind of have like a training block somewhere new and getting exposure to different styles. But overall, I think the competition season will be fairly late on my end.
You're not going to Asia?
That's my plan. Yeah, not to go to Asia.
Mm-hmm. Maybe after Olympics, though, I guess.
Maybe after.
Yeah.
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 We'll see.
Yeah.
How about you guys? Do you have a competition or competitions you're going to this coming season or schedule?
Oh, not sure. I know I'm going to Innsbruck. I know that.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah,
For
but
sure. Yeah, for me, Innsbruck for sure.
mm,
Prague.
yeah, Prague. But then and then it's like Budapest, maybe. But that's different. That's not IFSC, so it's a bit more difficult for
Oh yeah, I forgot that.
documentations and all that. Yeah, and Koper, maybe.
Koper, yeah. I would love to
Yeah,
go to
yeah,
Koper
yeah.
again.
I guess you're going to those as well, like the ones after.
Maybe
Yeah.
some of them. Yeah, I actually do think that I'll probably transition to doing more of a focus on rock climbing around that time.
Right.
So, yeah, so I'm not sure how many of the World Cups I would go to after, but we'll see.
Mm.
Definitely
you
keep
have
me
any?
open.
Yeah. And where would you want to go rock climbing? In the US or Spain or where?
Yeah, I think both would be really cool. Spain is definitely more of like a winter place for me as far as like what routes I want to get on.
Right.
But I think in the US as far as like hard routes, like I think there's a lot of places that I want to go, both in like September and throughout like the fall. So I think that might be more of the focus for now, and then yeah, we'll see come the winter like future months.
Right. Before we just talked about flashing routes, but do you want to like see what you can do in terms of red pointing?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think getting on like biography or bibliography was something that I was like really, I don't know, really eye-opening and just like being able to like do those moves. I mean, it would just be like incredible to piece something like that together. I think it would take a decent amount of time, but it's definitely on my to-do list one day.
And on rock, what is your preferred style?
Mm. I think that the New River Gorge is probably like one of my favorite places in the world, which is a lot of like lock offs on crimps. Is kind of the style that is predominant there. Apart from that, I think that getting just exposure to cool movement, variety of movement, I think is really beautiful for sure.
Is there anything you don't like? Like
I've never been the
pockets
best at
or
pockets. Yeah, I've never
mm,
been the best at pockets, but I do think that like it's kind of like what I said before. Like getting variety is like why I climb. Like it's not to push my grade solely. Like I think that be able to just get on things that you're bad at and improve at them is like really amazing about the sport. And that comes down to like disciplines, like as far as like trad climbing or maybe ice climbing in the future. Although I don't know if my hands could take that. But I think it's just cool that they're like um, just in the same way that comp bouldering like has like pushed my overall level of like both confidence and skill level in climbing. I think that every discipline has something to show you about the sport and where you can grow.
but could you see yourself diving into like a long-term projecting for, months or years?
Yeah, I definitely would like that. Maybe not. Maybe I should say I don't know if I'd like to do it for years, but I think at least having like something that I don't think is possible now and being able to bring that into fruition in the future would be really meaningful for me overall.
Like Flatanger stuff on
That would be pretty sick, yeah, for sure.
yeah.
Although I feel like the weather might be a little annoying, but
Yeah.
yeah. But I
Mhm.
think I guess like my first or yeah, my first 98 plus that I ever like did took like 2 years and over like 20 sessions or something like that. And I guess like uh the style was a little bit different than what I felt like I was predominantly good at, but I think it was just an incredibly rewarding process to be able to get on moves that didn't feel possible and then make them feel really doable by the end. So I think that having that process as a whole is like really rewarding. So I'd love to do it again, given
Which
the
route
time.
was that? The first 90 plus?
Yeah, it was Jaws 2 in Rumney, New
Ah,
Hampshire.
yeah. Okay, broken jaws.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
yeah. That's pretty. Isn't that pretty short, sort of?
Exactly. Yeah. So it's very bouldery. There are basically like
Yeah.
two boulders on it,
No,
which make it yeah, like all of the hardness is like in those two boulders. So
yeah. Because
pretty cool to
I
try.
yeah. Yeah, if I were to guess, like something like biography or bibliography would suit you much better.
Yeah, maybe. We'll
Yeah.
see. Yeah, exactly. Like I haven't really had a project that solely comes down to like endurance. Like I think even Full Metal Brisket, which was like the 90 plus that I did in November, I think that it kind of comes down to like a punchy like 15 move boulder like at the end. But it's not like a stamina problem where you have to like continually be on um for like the whole route. It's more like this like ending like two or so clips that make the difference.
So basically, you now have until August is the Olympic focus, and after that is having fun.
Yeah, exactly. That's the way I'm phrasing it in my head. But training for the Olympics honestly is really fun. Like I think
Yeah,
uh,
good.
it's one of the rare opportunities that I feel like I have in the sport to spend 6 months like doing things that I'm just bad at and having like a clear goal. Like I feel like a lot of the time, like in climbing, like it's like okay, maybe I'm gonna go here like next month, but we rarely have like plans that far in the future. So it's cool to just like know what I want to do for this year and kind of be confident in that plan.
And are you also checking like do you think like strength tests throughout the season to see where you're at in terms of finger and whatever?
Yeah, maybe not as much on the finger side. I think it's interesting.
No?
We have a strength and conditioning coach with USA Climbing, and I think that one of the things that I'm still very new to is that uh, we're having like screenings like in the beginning of the season, both like on mobility and some strength stuff. And I think that on top of that, like every week, we're doing like once a week he has this like tool that is like a linear actuator sensor that kind of like measures like power output. So we're measuring like power output of like my pull up and like a jump, and just having those two references and just seeing if it will, And I think already like I'm seeing like improvements like with the strength and conditioning, yielding more power in those kind of like tests. So it's kind of fun for sure to have like more metrics in climbing, and I think that's relatively new to the sport. But my engineering brain definitely is very excited about that.
So do you compare those results within the team?
I think that is the plan. But I think that right now, like, I don't think that we're like, oh, what are your numbers? Like,
No.
I got this week. It's nothing like that. But I think the idea might be like, 10 years down the line, we have athletes like in these disciplines, and we're able to compare it to 10 years before, and maybe they'll be better. Maybe they would have like clear signs of like ways that they need to improve. So I think it's just like kind of a reference point, which I think is really interesting for the sport, just being like in its early days of
But as
performance
a reference, can you actually see if you get really good results? Say that you can actually can you see it in your climbing as well? Like feel that you're better, or does it work like that?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. Like, I think that this is something that I'm still struggling with like strength and conditioning, is that like I feel like oftentimes it can make me more tired for my climbing sessions than maybe I would be if I like felt fully fresh. But I think like the hope is that in the long run, if I'm able to like maintain those like strength gains, I would like see that climbing improvement as well. Some days I come in and maybe like I didn't push as much in strength and conditioning, and then I feel like way better, and it's like, wow, this is like making huge improvements. But I think that like most things in climbing, it's about keeping your head in like the long game. So that's where I'm trying to focus.
I'm sort of out of questions. Well, not out of questions, but I think we should keep it. I'm just happy that we could finally hear you and see you, and you're actually moving the way you're supposed to.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry about that, guys. Like,
no
I'm glad
worries.
we can get it to work. Yeah.
Well,
Thanks for taking the time. This is fun.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very
I
much.
try to make a good edit. Good luck with everything, and have fun.
Thank you. Yeah, looking forward to seeing you guys later in the season.
Yep. It'd be nice.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good one.
Oh,
Bye.
Bye, Jesse.
bye.